All right, thank you for tuning in for another episode of the Educators Podcast. I'm super stoked. One of my good friends, colleagues, and fellow soldiers on the front line. We got through fourth grade together.
Yes, we did.
And we got through a few months of third grade together before I abandoned her. Left her high and dry in third grade, but I think it was the best thing for everybody. I am talking about fellow educator, Lindsey Cramer, one of the best third grade teachers, fourth grade teachers I've ever met, one of my favorite people on this planet.
Thank you.
How are you?
Good. Other than the fact that I thought it was a Monday because I was homesick yesterday, pretty good thing knowing that it's a Tuesday now. So we're getting closer and closer to spring break. Just got to get through next week and then we're there.
You got to love that, like, Tuesday that's a Monday, because it's like when it's done, the week's almost halfway over.
Exactly. I'm like, Wednesday, then it's Friday, Thursday, then it's already Friday. And you just got to look at it that way.
And I used to always say that Thursday was really Friday Eve. It was like the Eve
Friday Junior.
And the hardest part, what would you say is the hardest part about getting, like, wouldn't you agree that getting up and getting to school, like, once you get there, you can go from there?
100%. My alarm goes off at 7 a.m. every day. And I probably don't get out of bed until 7:40. I think I snooze it like 3 or 4 times. The getting up and then having to get dressed. And what am I going to wear? And I got to pack my lunch. I'm like, this is exhausting. That's like the least thing I want to do. The last thing I want to do. And then my drive is 5 minutes. And I'm like sitting in the car. I'm like, everyone's moving slow. I just want to get to work. And then I get there. I'm like, it's the calm before the storm, that 15, 20 minutes of just darkness in your room. Life is great. No one's talking. It's the best part of the day.
And then the bell rings.
Yeah.
Or that first kid walks in. And, bless their hearts, but sometimes when you get that visitor that shows up before the bell, and you're kind of like, just one more minute. And they're like, but I'm going to be here anyways. No, you don't understand. We need us teachers. We need that moment.
We need that time. That like extra minute before we pick them up in PE, that every little bit counts. And right now I have a lot of my former students that have been sneaking their way down to see me. Mm-hmm. So my normal kids plus them. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I love you all. But it is 8:30 in the morning. I need a break. I need a break already. Like, I can't do this. I can't do all this right now. I love them to death, but it's that morning.
And it's a double-edged sword, because it's like, it's a testament to how great a teacher you are and how they respond to you. They want to come back and see you. But on the flip side, there is that line where it's we as teachers need to recharge our mojo. Like we need that time.
And if I could keep every kid I've ever taught in the same room with me in a perfect world where they were all, I would do it in a heartbeat. As like if they just sit on their Chromebooks and do what they were told, fake reality, I would do it. But that's just not it. And especially this year, and I know you noticed this too, they're so needy. This is the neediest group of kids I've been working with kids for 10 years now, and this is the neediest, hand-holding, read everything to me group of kids. And at the end of the day, you love them to death, but it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And I give so much credit, like when you had Mallory and Imani on, and they go home and then they have their own kids that they have to deal with. And I go home and I'm just like, I see my dog and I'm just like, I love you, but I need 5 minutes for my dog. Like, and because, he wants to play and everything. So much credit to them. They're such great, amazing mothers.
Self-care is so important. And that's been a common 100%. Theme is you can't, it's sometimes like givers like us, like teachers like us, we sometimes feel guilty having to take something for ourselves. We almost see that as selfish, but in reality, when you think about it, you have to recharge your battery. You can't be that superstar teacher unless you're charging your battery first, unless you're taking care of you.
Exactly. And I know you being with me all last year, I think I took like one sick day, half day, whatever it was.
Well, you had an hour there, but
yeah. And now it's, I'm finding every so many weeks or months I need to take a day off. And it was because of you and Imani. And you really just told me, like, you're going to burn out. You need to take care of yourself, because I cannot be the best me, teacher, friend, person, coworker to be around if I'm not 100% me. And if I'm dragging, I mean, and my relationship with my kids, it's very profound. And they'll look at me and they'll go, Ms. Cramer, you look sick today.
Yeah.
And the fact that, and I don't take that to heart. Like, I know that they're generally saying in the nicest way possible is you need to take care of yourself. And so now I've been trying more and more to listen to my body, what it needs. And being at the end of the day, the biggest thing, as long as they get home safe, that's all that matters. They're going to be okay. They're going to survive a day. They're not going to look back in 20 years and be like, remember that day Miss Cramer took off? She didn't care about us. Like, that's not what they're going to care about. They're going to care about when I'm in the moment and I'm excited and I'm interacting with them and I am my around with them.
Yeah. Do you think that that sometimes people don't realize that kids are stronger and more resilient than we give them credit for? Like, for example, they're very perceptive. And I think 100%. It's a testament that they say, Ms. Cramer, they feel comfortable enough to say, Ms. Cramer, you don't look well, because they want their Ms. Cramer to be 100%.
Oh, yeah. And kids can tell when you fake it. And that's the biggest thing is, don't be that cartoon character, life's great and wonderful, jolly Ollie face. They don't want that. I honestly, yesterday, I did go in for the first 2 hours. And my one girl, bless her heart, she goes to me, she said, Miss Cramer, is it April Fool's Day? And I looked at her and I go, what do you mean? She's like April Fool's Day, opposite day. Are you playing a joke? And I said, sweetie, what are you talking about? She goes, you're just not yourself. You don't look like yourself. You're not acting like yourself. What's going on? Like, she generally thought like I was trying to be a different person in the morning.
Like Miss Nelson versus Viola Swamp or something.
Exactly. Yeah. And I dropped my kids off pee and I went to the office. I said, I can't do this. The fact that my kids could pick it out that second in the morning, we were not going to make it through that day.
Yeah.
And that they knew. And I'd rather they're going to get more done and be happier with a sub giving them work to do than me getting upset every 5 seconds because I don't feel well. And they don't deserve to be taken out on them. They don't. They're already working so hard and they're under so much pressure as it is. The last thing they want is a tired, exhausted person breathing down their neck because I simply just don't have the patience for it.
Exactly. And that goes back to that self-care and they get it. Like there's, of course, there are times where the kids, I remember one time I was really sick. I was trying to fight through, but I got to PE time and I'm like, I got to check out. And I told the kids, I said, hey, when you come back, it's going to be a sub picking you up. And at first they're all, oh, no. But they got it. They could see. They could see. I'm not. Yes. It's almost like the Snickers ad, but instead of Snickers, you need time off. It's like, Mr. Burden, you need to take some time off. And it's very important. And going back to what you said too, they can see they don't want that cartoon character that they do, because they don't trust someone that's got that lobotomized smile, the smile, but their eyes like, hey, little kiddo, everything's gonna be great. They don't trust that.
I think if they did that, my kids would be like, are you okay? Like, is everything all right?
Then they're thinking something's wrong.
Yes.
Talk about one of the many traits that I really admire just watching you as a teacher, and your ability to really develop rapport with your students. You develop a community and understanding, and they respond to you. And a lot of times, the joke is that your first 3 years of teaching are chaotic, and you're just trying to figure it out. But you seem to be like a fish to water. You really are natural, and a lot of the stuff that makes you a great teacher, you can't get taught in a professional development course or by reading a book or going to a college course. Tell us about how important it is to develop genuine rapport with students, and how that feeds into not just behavior management but classroom management.
I mean, I don't think you can generally be the greatest teacher you can without forming that connection, period. I mean, I spend my first 2 months getting to know every little thing about them, siblings, parents, family, what they do after school, who their friends are, their interests. If you don't have that, and it's not just getting to know them, you also have to reciprocate that.
Yeah.
For example, today they're learning about ancient Rome. And I said, oh, like Miss Cramer, her ancestors from there. We got a conversation as, I've been there, and they wanted to see pictures. And, seeing those pictures of just from Google, that doesn't mean anything. When they saw that connection, and then we went off of conversations of kids who, especially your military, who have been all over. And okay, it might have not been the ideal district 25 minutes of social studies that they wanted about Rome, but it generated conversations, and we got to talk about it, and my kids got to learn about each other and even different parts of the world. And I just feel like without that, you're just teaching mannequins. As best I can say it. If there's nothing there, they're staring blank at you, you're staring blank at them. I mean, I've had tremendous breakthroughs. My one kid last year, I can write a whole book on everything about him, because yes, I did spend 6 months out of the 10 months of school just getting to know him, because if I didn't have that 6 months, the last 4 months, he would have not even grown or done the schoolwork that he wanted to. And you have to work with them. And yes, you're going to have admin and all these people breathing down on you, but they also need to understand that if you don't connect and you don't create this bond with your kids, they're not going to respond. They're not going to do their best effort. They're also not going to feel comfortable enough to tell you if they need help, or if it's their off day, or something's going on in their family. I mean, I've had kids who've come up to me and say, I got into this really big fight with my mom this morning, and I'm not going to have the best day today. And you just give them all that love and that grace, but you need to have that relationship in order for them to tell you that, instead of getting upset and saying, hey, why aren't you doing your work? You're slacking off today. That's just going to put them in a flight or fight mode, and they're just going to completely shut down.
Yeah.
If it's, you say, you know what, I understand. You had a hard time this morning. Do what you can today. Come sit next to me. It's fine. And it's not the easiest thing to do. And yes, it adds more onto your plate during the day, but it can give a better outcome and a better relationship with them.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's so important. And I feel like too, sometimes that given a student that 20-minute, put their head on their desk and head down, you can then get 40 minutes of productivity versus a 60 minutes of just them not wanting to do anything.
Exactly.
And they feel protected, and I think that's something that not every classroom has. But if you can build that community, build that sense of trust, it comes from being genuine. It not just and I love what you said about, it's not just getting to know them, it's showing them who you are. I think is so important. I do want to talk about our friend Egg. Obviously, we can't name names, but but speaking, because I think he's a great example of some of the real challenges that we face with those students that are really in need in so many ways, and yet how he responded so much differently to you. Do you feel like what were some of the positive outcomes, but some of the obstacles that you had to overcome with winning this person over? Because you did a tremendous job with this person, this student who was struggling really to find a positive identity.
I mean, I'll be honest, I had a lot of people coming to me that my first year teaching last year, coming to me and putting all these ideas in my head of what this student was like. And I honestly took all that and I threw it out the window, and I said, I don't know this kid.
Yeah.
Honestly, they don't know this kid. They haven't taught him. Do not feed me information, because at that point it's just hearsay. And he walked into my room. He came in. I remember he was one of my first students that walked to my room, hood on, saggy jeans. He had his Chromebook, and he plops in the back of the room and just threw his Chromebook down and put his head down. And I said, good morning. And I addressed his name. He just stared at me. And that probably went on for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
No response, nothing. Sat in the back of the room. And I was like, what am I going to do with this kid? I went to admin, they gave me some ideas. And one of the things they did, I took his desk and I attached it to mine. And I said, we are one. And he just looked at me and he was just like, thought I was crazy. I said, you're my buddy. So we're going to hang out. I said, I'm going to get to know you.
Awesome.
And as you know, he had this idea of, no one cares about me. I've been walking around school for years. No one cares. They really don't. They just see me as another trouble kid. And he would tell me multiple times, no one cares about me here. Why does it matter what I do? Why does it matter I succeed? Everyone thinks I'm a troubled kid.
Wow.
And that this isn't something I've never exposed to anything that. And as you know, from that day forward, he kept he would not test without his desk touching my desk, even if I wasn't sitting at it. It was just that connection, and he would do all of his work next to me, no matter what group I had. And we worked on reward systems and this and that, but I made it a point to myself, and not just really him, but to all my kids, I'm going to learn at least one thing about my kids today. And I still do it every day. No matter what it is, it can be the smallest thing. Yeah. I'm going to learn one thing today. Because I know I've taught them a bunch, but what am I learning? I need to learn something about them.
That's tremendous. And being a student of your own kids, being a student of them. And that's a class. It was a Carolyn Ann Tomlinson. She talks more about it in relation to like how students learn. But I think it's so important. You got to know who you're teaching. You can't feed a closed mouth, and in order to get them to be responsive. But that's just tremendous. Here's this kid, and I know more about that situation than we've talked about, than we can publicly say, but. Here's a kid that had been written off. He was being told by administration and faculty that he's a problem kid, and he's seeing that, and he's just like you said. If the fact that he's saying nobody cares about me, and then you show up, and it's like a divine hand. It's like here you are, like here's this one person that cares about me. And he wasn't a dummy.
Very smart.
Very smart. Kid. And do you think sometimes though, like it's like sometimes that's all the kids need is somebody to believe in them, and he's going to remember that the rest of his life.
100%. And our relationship was 1,000% built on trust. And this kid, from the day I met him. We do eyes. Our things was eyes. Yeah. And I would say eyes, and he would do it back to me. And I said, you need to always tell me the truth. And I said, if you always tell me the truth, I will always believe you. And he, to this day, and this is very hard to say with a lot of kids, has yet to lie to me about anything. He is so open. He'll find me in the halls and he will tell me things. And I know if he tries and he does a little side eye and I say eyes. And he goes, Ms. Cramer, eyes. Okay, this is what happened. Because I told him, I said, I will never get upset with you. I will never yell at you. I will never be mad at you. Now, I will be disappointed in the choices that you make. That is something completely different. But I said, this relationship is built on trust. And if we don't have that, this isn't going to work. And he needed it. He needed someone who would just believe him, because I think he was just tired of over and over again being told that he's lying all the time. And his story was just being brushed off, and no matter what happened, it didn't matter because he was the one saying that. And to have someone say, wow, like she's listening and she understands, and she's not trying to pull my leg here. She genuinely cares, which was really, really big for him to have that person in his life to understand that.
And that's so important. It's for all the kids. I mean, we're talking about just one individual case, which was an extreme case, but every one of these kids need that, regardless of their home situation. Now, do you find it frustrating sometimes, though, when you'll have a major breakthrough with a student and then they go home on a Friday and then maybe they spend the weekend with a parent that's less focused on them, and then they come back on Monday and it almost feels like you're starting over?
I do have to say, I have been very blessed in the past few years, besides one or two families where I have had tremendous parents. I mean, and I worked for a nonprofit for 8 years, and I cannot, this is rare of what I'm saying. I came here and I was like, what is this? A whole new dimension. and going back to the relationship is, yes, you need the relationships with the kids, but you also need them with the parents. And I have a lot of parents who will say, so-and-so had a really rough morning and they're going to be off today. And if you need me, just call me, or I'll come pick them up, or whatever you have to do. Is it okay if they can do this and that today? So I think bottom line, relationships, I can say it a million times. You need that. You not just in teaching, you need that in life.
Yeah.
You need relationships in life. You're not going to really go that far without having your people and your trust and building upon that, or you're just by yourself. And that's really sad.
Let's put that down right here. Relationships. I'll put that
in the capital letters.
Relationships do matter. It matters with your team too. Working with you was great. It was a joy, not just because we're a couple of fun people to joke around with, but truly, I think you and I and our team were cut from a similar cloth in that we genuinely care about the kids. We're genuine, and we want learning to be fun. We want the kids to be having fun, but also learning. But I feel like it's important to have that same trust relationship, like you said, with the parents. The parents are just as important. That way, like if the parents trust you, one, they're not going to be calling up the front office going, I don't know what Miss Cramer's doing, unless they're a special case, which that happens. But then there's also that they have that trust, and when you send something home or when there's an issue, they trust your judgment already. They're not going to automatically. I've found, and I've even seen this with the same parent. Like at the very beginning of the year, if there was ever something that I had to talk to them about, by the end of the year, they're much more receptive and working together with me, and you're just having that rapport. They're much more responsive. And I think the same thing with building your team, and if you can talk a little more about with parents and with your colleagues, with your teammates, how important is it to build that trust and relationship there?
Yeah, I mean, with my parents, I did it last year and I did this year. And yes, apps are great to use to communicate, but I found, and not everyone agrees with this, I feel like a lot of people don't, I do use my personal number to set parents. And it's just, I found with a lot of the working crazy hours, military, whatever, they can call me, they can text me. I have parents that send me photos of their kids all the time. And I'm not a referral person. Yes, I had my one said kid in the past. I've had to because legally I had to.
Yeah.
But there's an issue. I'm going to go to the parent. First of all, I'm going to talk it out with the kid multiple times.
Yeah.
Then I make my kid aware that I am going to tell mom or dad that we've talked to this many times and you're not understanding it. And I never phrase it to the kid that you're in trouble. I always say to the kids, I'm going to talk to mom or dad about how we can help you. What's going on? What are some strategies? What are some ways to benefit you in the classroom? Because that's really what we're there for. I'm not there to say, hey, go ground your kid. That's not my job. Yeah. That's not what I'm trying to do. And again, some people may not agree with this, but I'm very open with my kids and sometimes even let them read, like, this is what I'm sending. This is the message I'm saying, or I'm going to go have a phone call for school. This is what we're talking about. So it's not a big shock to them because they need to be part of that conversation.
Yes.
Because it is about them. So me talking to a parent and not having them involved, that's not solving much at all. That's just two people going back and forth. When the one we're trying to help is not there, that's really not helping them. And I can go now piggyback off of the team. That relationship wise is so important. And I was, what was I? 24, 23 when I started. And obviously like Mallory and Imani, moms, Kyle was a lot older, you're older than me. And I felt like this little baby.
I was the crazy uncle.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, I'm going as a new teacher. And my biggest fear was they're just going to look at me and say, either she's straight out of college, she's going to think she knows everything, or she's straight out of college, she knows nothing. And, going into that, and I didn't just move to a new city, I moved to a new state. I moved 7 hours away from home.
Yeah.
And I did it alone, and that was a lot. And going into that, I was petrified, to be honest. And you probably noticed this very standoffish for the few weeks, just trying to figure everything out. But once you build that connection, we were spilling that tea all over the place. Like, talking, just on our planning while, talking and, our group chats. And I mean, if it wasn't obvious, you're the reason I came down to third grade to hang out with you. You really convinced me. And my team this year, too, they're just so awesome. And one of them's a mom, and another one, she's a little bit older than me. She's getting married. And they never look down at me and go, oh, she's in her young 20s. She's still figuring it out. She'll eventually get there. It's not that at all. It's, how can I help?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know if you've seen the show New Amsterdam, but his favorite line is, how can I help? And that is constantly what I'm getting is, how can I help you? And that's even a big difference from last year, not to tangent on, but I noticed from our admin this year, and especially our principal, her biggest thing is, how can I help?
That's tremendous.
And that is such a difference than saying, what can you do better? What should you improve on? What do you need? How can I help you? Just that changing of the words meant so much to me. Knowing that, I mean, to go off a bit, I was having a rough time a few weeks ago, and I did message her, and she called me right away she saw my message, called me. She said, how can I help? What can I do for you to make you feel better, to make you feel supported? And I wasn't expecting anything at all. I was expecting we'll revisit this after the weekend. She was with her family. She said, no, this is more important right now. She's like, I need to make sure you're okay. And that really, it brought me back down to earth, knowing that there are genuinely good people out there and who want to make sure that you are a great teacher and that you're just not another statistic, another number that we could just, go through the revolving door to get somebody else.
That's tremendous. I mean, how important is it to have a leader that sees themselves not as a facilitator or a manager or a number cruncher, but to be a true leader is somebody that does to you what you do to the students, is to build that relationship and to make you feel valued. I think that's one of the major reasons why so many great teachers leave, is they don't feel valued. But to have that one person in leadership, it's the same, like everything we talk about with the kids, giving them a reason to want to come to school and to feel valued. I think that's the same for teachers. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. You want to feel worthy and accepted when you wake up and you go to work in the morning. This is not, I didn't get into teaching to feel like I can be swept on the rug and replaced any second. I went into my job because I love my job, but I also need support with my job. Yeah. And if I'm not getting that, you're, like a lot of places are now, you're going to lose those teachers.
Yeah.
And fortunately, this year we have an incredible principal, and she leaves. I don't know what I'm going to do, but she has really brought me up many times and, reminded me why I started, and knowing that you're not alone, and also acknowledging the struggles that teachers are facing. She's not blinded by that. She's very open and honest and is real and says, I get it. I was a teacher. I see what's happening right now. I'm acknowledging it. I'm trying to help fix the problem.
Yes.
Which we need. We don't need, we can just replace you, because no, reality right now, you just can't replace teachers because you don't have them. You don't have them.
We need so much more of that. And, kind of not just with our administrator, but with like a lot of the other faculty members too. I have so much more respect for those that are real. We can, our math coach, specialist, whatever they're calling it now. We have those folks that are real. We had a language arts specialist that left us last year, and now she's an assistant principal. And we have these folks that they come from a genuine. It's one of those things where there's there's so much garbage coming down from up on high from these people that are so far removed from the classroom. But to get somebody that's like, all right, listen, I've been in the classroom. I know this is what we're going to try to make this work, but I get it. To having that person that's, like you said, how can I help? To have a leader that says that is tremendous. We need it. And you can see, it's so sad. It's sad that I had to leave, and I had my reasons for it, but I could see how different, how more positive certain people were. The assistant principal was night and day compared to how that person was before.
100%.
And it's it's such a motivating force, powerful force to make someone feel valued. And sometimes it's just a simple matter of wording, like you said, instead of like, these are the things that you need to work on. It's how can I help?
Yes.
How can I help? Boom. Another, relationships and how can I help? I think those are tremendous. You mentioned, and it's funny too, because, when you started teaching, as you don't present yourself as a brand new teacher. Like, a lot of people, I think, were surprised that was your first year teaching. Because
a lot of people are shocked when I tell them how old I am too.
Yeah.
And they're like, really? And I said, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but
I think it's tremendous. And it goes back to, there are things that are just a calling. There are things that are you can't learn in a book or in a class or in a professional development. But you said you did work for a nonprofit prior. What kind of geared you towards teaching? Did you always want to be a teacher, or was it a calling you felt, or was it something that all of a sudden one moment you're like, hey, this is it?
Yes and no. When I was little, I used to play school all the time. I mean, when I would stay at my grandma's all the time, I would choose a student as a teacher, make her a little D6, like tests that I would score. But honestly, and this is very weird to say, my end of elementary school and all of middle school, and even going into high school, I wanted to be a forensic scientist.
CSI.
First I was a vet, then I realized I would have to put animals down, and I said, I could not do that. So I would say for about 6-7 years, I was set on being a forensic scientist. I watched all those CSI shows, and just you name it. I was Criminal Minds. My parents were a little worried for me because I was like 10 years old, 11 years old, really into these shows. Stayed up at like 9 o'clock on a school night to watch the new episode that aired on like ABC or NBC. And I was so driven. I was like, I want to be that person on the field. I want to be like measuring, finding the fingerprints.
Blood splatter.
And then I got to high school and I had to start taking biology and chemistry and the biggest turnoff for me. And I said, I cannot do this. I said, TV made it sound like a lot more fun than it actually is. I just want to be out in the field. I don't want to do all that extra stuff. So I grew up going to a camp in my hometown since I was in kindergarten. And my sister wound up being a counselor there. And so I did 5 years of being a counselor. And I worked with kindergarten and first graders for 5 years straight, specialized with them. And then my boss handed me the keys to run the organization for 4 years.
Oh, wow.
So I was in charge of kindergartners to eighth graders, mainly over summer. And when I come home on my breaks, working her in different organizations that she had. And roughly a week, I'd be in charge of 250, 300 children. Whoa. Double that with their parents. And when I say it's a nonprofit, it's you have the richest, the poorest, to diversity of nuclear families, same-sex parents, adopted kids who don't know where the next meal is coming. I mean, all over different ethnicities. It was a spectrum. And I loved every second of it. I loved my kids. But being 5'3" and being a white female in power was very hard. There were a lot of nights I went home crying and just saying, I just can't do this anymore because I felt disrespected. Yeah. And I would call my boss and I would be like, I can't do my job. I can't. I said, no one trusts me. No one believes in me. And she said, I do. She said, I wouldn't give you this job if I didn't think you could do it right. And she talked me off the ledge a lot of times. But then I always go back to, and I have the sticker on my computer, I'm talking to her now, the sticker of remember why you started. Mm-hmm. I didn't start for the parents. I didn't start for the people above me to tell me what to do. I started for the kids.
Yeah.
And I'm going to end because of the kids. And that was my biggest thing is, this is why I'm here. All the extra fluff, it's just fluff. It doesn't matter at the end of the day, because why I'm here is to be with them. And that's what led me to really want to be a teacher. As if I can make an impact and care about these kids, taking them on trips, imagine the magic that could happen in a classroom.
Do you feel like, and that's tremendous, and that's very powerful. It's like you got into it for these kids, and that you're there. Do you feel like there's an unwritten curriculum that we teach? Because ultimately, I feel like our job as educators is to prepare these kids for the future. And yeah, you can look at a math lesson plan, science, those things, but there's an unwritten curriculum. Would you agree about like life skills and that in building relationships and community? Yes.
I would say half of teaching you can't find in a book. Mm-hmm. And that's the reality of it. I mean, coming from the basics, I've had kids in third grade, and you had them too. You showed me the video. Can't tie their shoes.
Yeah.
I mean, this is 8, 9-year-olds. Can't do basic life skills, or I'm still having to say, you were in the bathroom very long. Do we remember to wash our hands? I mean, it's the simplest things that kids should know. It's just, it's not in a book. Mm-hmm. Math is not going to help them remember that they shouldn't scream across the room that they need to raise their hand and, say please and thank you. That's not written there. It's not. And I mean, I love my kids so much, but I do find a lot of my time teaching them basic life skills.
Yeah.
And when you factor in that and transitions time and specials and lunch and recess and PE and all of this, it's the physical content of what you're teaching them is so minimal. But you have to remind yourself that the life lessons are just so important, and sometimes more important than anything that that the district, the states, anyone's telling them that they have to learn right this second as their brains are developing at this age.
Yeah, they're not going to remember a learning target. They're going to remember the life lessons. They're going to remember, like our friend's going to remember you being the first to care about him.
I did this lesson with my 4th graders last year, and I mean, when I said half my kids are probably in tears, there were probably half of them weren't. I was in tears. And I had a lot of problems with kids not being nice to each other, like really nasty things going on. And for some reason, at the beginning of the year, they gave us this giant box of copy paper. And I was like, what am I doing with all this paper, right? I know some people are listening probably like, oh, I'll take that paper.
Yeah, I'll take that.
I had one of my kids, 2 of my kids, I had come and sit in my room. And I said, every time you put someone down, you're putting this on them. And I had one of them, they were each holding a thing of paper, like the stack of paper.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, this student, he can take it. He's not even budging. And I said, okay, now you said this to this other student. This kid probably has a hard show, whatever. You're saying it again to this kid. I said, and then I added another stack of paper. And I kept adding it until this kid looked at me and he said, Ms. Cramer, I just can't hold it anymore.
Wow, that's powerful.
And I said, so what are you going to do? He said, I need to drop it. I'm going to fall. Like he was like, I'm literally going to fall to the ground. And I said, drop it. And he dropped it. And he was like, he just sees exhaustion on his face of like, oh my God. And I said, every time you say something to someone or put them down, you're adding a stack. Don't be that person that adds a stack every time, because everyone has a breaking point. Yes, this person might be able to hold it better.
Yeah.
And this person might not be able to. And I said, and there's going to be a time where that person's going to crack and they're going to break and they're not going to know how to get back up again because of your actions. And after that, we did an activity and, this is before we had morning meeting, and our class really needed the help. And I gave each kid a sticky note, and I said, I want you to write something I wish someone knew about me. And it was completely anonymous, and everyone wrote it, same color sticky note, everything, so no one could tell.
Yeah.
And they handed it to me upside down. And I told them I would not share them with the class because they're still young, you know.
Yeah.
And I went home and I read them and I just cried in bed. I just like the stuff that these kids said that I said it's only for my eyes. And I said, your name's not on them. And I said, I won't write you out to anybody. And it was so powerful because you didn't realize 9-10-year-olds, they have so much on their plates that we don't realize. And I had them and I moved, and I think I lost them in my move, but I kept them on my dresser at home as my, this is why I started, my reminder. And they sat there for the rest of the year. And that was my reminder, my kids. And I had kids saying throughout the year, towards the end of the year, being like, when someone did something that they knew was complete, I mean, kids name call, but if it was completely out of line, I heard kids saying, you're adding a stack.
Whoa.
And they would say, you're adding a stack. And that to me was like, that's what they remember. That is something that they remember.
Hang on, I got allergies here.
Yeah.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
That's powerful. Hear that. To hear that you're adding a stat. That's cool.
And they caught on so quickly of knowing you, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. And
sometimes kids are really good at masking that kind of that stuff's going on. And you have that kid that's just going about their day. You don't know what they're dealing with at home. Or like other kids don't know. And kids have to deal with so much now. In addition to the online social media influence and just just in general, sometimes you don't know if the parents are splitting up or they have a relative going to jail or they just lost somebody, or there's stuff going, either just anything. And that's very powerful. And I think that goes for adults too. I mean, there's I feel like a lot of times we dwell on the negativity with each other instead of how much more we have in common with each other. Yeah, I think a lot of us have a lot more in common than we do different. Yet it's the differences that we see as a negative instead of a positive.
And I mean, you were very like me when we were at work, and you don't want to say you trust little, but you surround yourself with a small group of people that you can open up to without that fear of judgment, and not them saying, well, I could do this better. Why didn't you do this? I get it. And what you're going through, it's not fair. And I understand, and I'm here for you. And that is a whole difference than someone coming and saying, well, I've been in this situation before. You should just, no, I'm not telling you because I want that. If I wanted that, I probably would not be doing my job. Like, I would not be where I am today. I'm saying because I need someone to just say, I hear you, I understand you, and you can come to me about it without being judged.
God, we all need that.
Yes.
In life. What frustrates you the most right now with being a teacher? What do you feel like frustrates you the most, or kind of that magic wand question?
The magic wand, it changes. It changes so often. I feel like time. If I could just have more time. And as crazy as that sounds, but when I talked about you factor everything else in, it's a lot on the kids, and the expectation for my kids are here.
Yeah.
Where my kids are, they're down here, and it's not their fault. And it's not their parents' fault. It's not my fault. It's the world they're brought into. And you always say, if we just had a little bit more time is the biggest thing. And no one's recognizing that because they want these kids to progress so quickly and get them ready for these state testing. And they can't. And as much as I, give them optional work to do at home or do it in the classroom, I'm not a drill sergeant. And I'm not going to drill into these kids and say, your third grade life depends on if you pass.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. It's so just a test.
Yes, yes.
And it's not even it's just a test. It's just a test for the people up here to feel like they're meeting their goals while competing with all the other states and all the other countries around us. Why not focus on where our kids are and what they need?
Growth.
That's what we need. Growth is, don't test them. You are causing these kids so much anxiety, so much stress. They are getting overwhelmed. I have kids that are breaking down just thinking about the test.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're in 3rd grade and they've never done it and they're going, it's so long and I just can't. They're going, Ms. Cramer, I just can't do it. I won't be able to do it. I'm not going to pass it. And so many negative thoughts because it's drilled in. It's like a life or death. You need to pass us. And I'm telling them, no, it's not. And I know, speaking out about this, it's not a favorite opinion, especially the people above me. But at the end of the day, when I struggled with test anxiety my entire life since I was young. And it's not something I talk now putting on the internet, but I did not get diagnosed with it until I was a sophomore in college. And I just felt like I was dumb and I could not do anything. And I went to the doctor and, she was like, no, it's a chemical imbalance. You have severe anxiety. So when you take tests, you put so much pressure on yourself, you literally go into a blackout state and then you panic. It's how she explained it to me. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what it's like.
Wow.
And now we're forcing that on 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds in elementary school to do that. It's not fair to them. It's really not. They're just kids. They're still developing. It shouldn't be you put a P or an F on their head to say you did it or you didn't. It should say, wow, you got a 1,200 at the beginning of the year. Now you're at a 1,600. Look at that 400-point growth. Yeah. That's what I want someone to say. Not, you still missed it by a few questions. Better luck next year. Like, no, they don't need to hear that because you're diminishing an entire year's work that they've worked their butts off to get to by still saying, doesn't matter, doesn't count because you didn't hit where we wanted you to be. Whether you're capable of it or not, doesn't matter.
And every kid's different. In fact, it's so funny how, folks will from up on high will talk out of one side of mouth saying, you got to differentiate your instruction. You got to do this. But then on the other side, but everybody's got to meet this standard. And I'm all for authentic assessment, but it's for data collection. It's not, it should always be a snapshot. Okay, this is where they are. Where can we get them to the next level? And one of the things that used to frustrate me with these collaborative plannings is we would discuss data that's almost a month old when we've already put those interventions in place. But when you talk about the test, the SOL for us, for in Virginia it's SOL, but in all of the different states it's different things. You're absolutely right. There's too much put on this one test, and I know they got to figure out some way of whatever, but I feel like that we really need to relook at how our education system and where the education money's going and the whole way of how schools get accredited, because I know that there's certain things that you want to be careful of, but most teachers don't get into this profession because they want to teach kids wrong. They want to fail the kids. Or they want the kids to not succeed. And I feel like there's such a lack of trust with teachers, and it's above principals' heads. It goes way beyond that, because we have degrees. We're the ones in the front line, regardless of our master's degrees or bachelor's degrees. We have a degree in the real deal because we're in those trenches. We're there with the kids, and I feel like a lot of times that goes on deaf ears. And we're telling them these kids are, to put so much pressure on a kid. I would rather celebrate the kid that went from barely able to read to this level, even if it's below grade level. I mean, that's a celebration. The flip side is the kid that is scored. The kid that scores a perfect score on the SOL, what's the next level for them? Did they beat the game? Do they not have to learn anything? No. Where's their next level? What's going to challenge that student? You know, and it's very we're trying to, I think, quantify something that's very subjective. It's very different for every individual.
I agree. And I even had parents who've reached out to me, especially this year, and saying, I'm failing my child as a parent in multiple meetings. And I'm telling them, you're not failing them. And they, well, what if I just spent more time, or, you know, it's hard because I have so many kids and my husband's employed. And I said, you are doing the best that you can. And I said, I'm doing the best I can, and they're doing the best they can. And said, at the end of the day, that's all you can ask for.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, especially with third graders, they start out in kindergarten virtual. The foundation of their education was pretty much diminished and gone before they even had the chance to have it.
Yeah.
And now it breaks my heart when I hear parents saying, do I keep my kid back? What else do I need to do? Do they need to do this? And then I'm like, if you're doing everything that you can, great. But you have to remember, they also need to be a kid.
Yes.
They're with me for 7 hours a day. They're doing, and this is why we've agreed on as a grade level, we weren't going to do homework, because they need a chance to be a kid. They need to be sports. They need to join clubs, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts. They need to hang out with their family, their friends. They just need time to be a kid.
Yes.
And that is the biggest thing. And with all of this pressure, especially going up and up now with, like, you need so many degrees and whatnot, they're not going to get that time back. I remember growing up when I was little, I just can't wait to be an adult. I just can't wait.
Yeah.
I can't wait till my 13th birthday, my 16th birthday, my 18th, my 21st, so on. I'm 25 now, and I said what I would give to go back and just enjoy those years. And things that I thought were so big and important and life-ending. So, you know, you're little and you think, oh my gosh, the world's ending. I'm like, wow. To have the simplest things be my biggest worries would be amazing. I mean, I have kids that get upset and they're like, my paper got a hole in it, I was writing too fast. I said, okay, there's tape. Simple solution. Like, for that to be my worry again, I would love that. Now I got bills and
it's like mortgage.
I'm like, how do I take care of a car again? And I was like, oh God, I have a dog. And, you know, the list goes on and on. Just, they need to enjoy being young.
Kids,
you only get
don't be in a hurry to grow up. Enjoy being a kid, because it goes fast. It does. Well, Lindsey, this has been fantastic chatting with you. We could chat for another hour, and I'd love to have you back on.
Absolutely.
I think this is tremendous. And got a little allergies there.
You know me. We could talk for hours like we used to, and after school and on staff days.
Well, we'll definitely I'll have you back on. We'll talk a lot more. But this has been tremendous. If you have any final thoughts, any advice for veteran and brand new teachers out there, and anybody that's listening in regards to education, what would that be?
Oh, I have a few, I guess I could say. My biggest ones, I've said it a few times. Remember why you started, why you went into this. Let kids be kids. And remember that. And I think this is, you said on Amani's podcast, is never resent the kids when teaching, because that is a sign that you need to move on. And I've had my moments where it felt like that. And I bring it back to why I started. You start it for the kids, you're going to end it for the kids. And that's my biggest thing is I'm not here to please the people above me. I'm not. If you don't like what I'm doing, sorry, but I'm not here for you. I'm here for them. And I think teachers, parents, anybody who works with kids, has kids, you're doing your best. You're doing it for them. You're doing what works for you, and just don't let anyone else tell you otherwise.
That's fantastic. And on that note, Lindsey, Miss Cramer, you get the Jeans Pass Jack. thank you so much for joining us for this Educators podcast. On behalf of Lindsey Cramer, I'm Mr. Burden. Have a great week, and don't let anybody take you away from your why. You're here. Educators are here for the future for our kids. Have a great week. Catch full episodes of the Educators podcast every Thursday at 4 p.m. Real educators with the real issues in education. Thank you so much for watching. And of course, take care of yourself. Jeans passes to anyone who likes, shares, and comments on this video. Have a great week.